It is easy to picture kings as distant figures, sealed away inside castles of stone and gold. Their lives feel larger than life, and their decisions echo through the ages like thunder. But if you step back and listen slowly, you will find that kings are men too, full of fears, strange habits, and longings that do not always make sense. One king in particular has stood out for centuries. His name was Henry VIII. You may know him from school lessons, or from paintings where he stares out with small, sharp eyes above a thick beard and wide frame. You may even know him from the famous story that he had 6 wives. But what most people do not know are the quiet, bizarre, and sometimes haunting truths that lived in the shadows of his reign. So let us walk slowly into his world. Let us sit with him, as though we are in the candlelit halls of his palace. Let us see what made him both powerful and deeply troubled. Henry VIII did not begin his life expecting to be king. His older brother Arthur was supposed to take the throne, but Arthur died young, leaving Henry as the heir. When Henry became king at just 17 years old, people saw him as a shining figure of hope. He was tall, athletic, handsome, and skilled in music. His voice was strong and charming. He loved to ride horses, hunt deer, and compete in jousts. But years passed, and the picture changed. The young king who once dazzled with energy became heavier, slower, and more restless. Accidents on horseback injured his legs, and open wounds refused to heal. His once graceful body grew swollen. His temper grew quick, and yet, beneath the armor and velvet robes, Henry carried strange habits, fears, and secrets. Look now at the painting before us. It shows Henry seated on a throne, dressed in armor, with a red velvet cloak hanging from his shoulders. His face looks stern and proud, though his eyes reveal a tired heaviness. In each hand, he grips a chain. Those chains run down to 2 women who kneel at his feet. The image is shocking, almost cruel, but it tells a truth about Henry. He saw his wives, and even his closest friends, not as equals but as possessions, bound to his will. And yet, beneath this display of dominance, there was something bizarre. Henry was deeply afraid of being betrayed, abandoned, or forgotten. The very chains he held in the painting were not only meant to control others. They were also the chains he wrapped around himself, binding his heart to a cycle of suspicion and loneliness. One of Henry's strangest fears was of sickness. He lived in a time when deadly plagues swept through cities and villages, taking lives in days. Henry would sometimes shut himself away in his chambers for weeks, refusing to see anyone, terrified that illness might creep in with them. Servants were ordered to scrub and air out his rooms, burning herbs to keep away invisible threats. And yet, in spite of his fear, Henry himself carried diseases. Many believe he suffered from syphilis or diabetes, though records are not certain. His ulcers smelled so badly that servants had to dress and clean them daily. The great king, who seemed so mighty in public, often sat alone in private, consumed by pain and the stench of his own body. But Henry was not only a man of fear, he was also a man of art. He loved music deeply. Few know that he composed songs himself. He played the lute and the organ, and he even wrote church hymns. There is a story that he once sang a piece he had composed in front of his court, surprising everyone with the tenderness in his voice. It is bizarre to imagine the same king who ordered executions, who demanded loyalty with iron fists, also wrote delicate melodies about love and faith. His songs were not remembered as masterpieces, but they showed that within the thick armor of his body, there still beat a heart that longed for beauty. Of course, The tale of Henry V is often reduced to one thing: his 6 wives. Divorced, beheaded, died, divorced, beheaded, survived. That is how children memorize their names and fates. But if you look closely, you will see something stranger. Henry was not simply chasing women for pleasure. He was chasing certainty, chasing a son who could secure his throne after he was gone. His obsession with heirs became a storm that tore through his marriages, destroying the lives of women who once believed he loved them. Yet even here, bizarre contradictions appeared. When Anne Boleyn, his second wife, failed to give him a son, he accused her of witchcraft and adultery. But some whispered that Henry himself believed in omens and curses, that he thought his marriages were doomed, because he had once married his brother's widow, Catherine of Aragon, against the teachings of the Church. It was as though Henry's own conscience haunted him, and he took out that haunting on the women he held closest. And here lies the twist to Henry's story. For all his power, for all his wealth, Henry was lonely. He could command armies, he could build palaces, he could even break away from the Pope in Rome and create a new church. But he could not command his own heart to be at peace. In his later years, he became suspicious of everyone: friends, servants, even family. He tested their loyalty constantly. He demanded signs of devotion, only to doubt them soon after. Those who failed to please him could be stripped of titles, locked in towers, or even executed. And so, one by one, people withdrew. They bowed, they obeyed, but they did not draw close. The bizarre truth is that Henry V, one of the most powerful kings in history, died surrounded by fewer companions than he once had as a young prince. The throne was wide, but his circle had grown narrow. As Henry aged, his body grew heavier. He needed machines to help him move between rooms. He wore padded clothing to cover his swollen frame. He ordered feasts of roasted meats and sweet puddings, yet often could not finish them because of pain. In the stillness of night, when candles flickered against stone walls, Henry sometimes asked for music. He wanted songs to ease him to sleep. Some said he would hum along to melodies he had composed in his youth, eyes closed, remembering the days when he had been handsome, athletic, and adored. And so the bizarre truth of Henry's life became clear. He had gained the world but lost his ease. He had bent nations to his will, but he could not bend time or fate. What are we to make of Henry V, then? Was he a tyrant, a dreamer, or a broken man chained by his own fears? Perhaps he was all three. History often paints in bold colors, heroes and villains, saints and sinners. But life is softer, stranger, more complex. The bizarre things about Henry VIII are not only the facts of his illnesses, his music, or his wives. They are the quiet truths that even kings are haunted by longing, by doubt, and by the need for love. When you next see his portrait, do not only notice the jewels, the armor, or the glare of authority. Look instead for the man inside, the man who clung to chains because he feared losing what he held, the man who wrote songs but seldom sang them aloud, the man who wanted to be remembered, and in that desire became unforgettable. And so, we leave the halls of Henry's court. The echoes of his footsteps fade into silence. The chains he once held are gone, but the stories remain. It is said that history is written by the victors, but perhaps it is also remembered by the listeners, by those who take time to hear the strange, quiet, and bizarre truths that lie behind the crown.